Hi everyone, and welcome back to One Autistic Person. The video today is going to be a little bit of a different one. Somebody has compiled a group of 15 statements or questions that autistic people are asked, and I'm going to go through them and give my very organic response to each one of them. I haven't seen them before I do them. It'll be a bit clunky because I'm going to have to stop and start a video, which is like there's like 5 seconds between it. The person's sort of like 5 seconds between each one, so there's a bit of let's wait for things. So I'm going to have to improvise a little bit between them, so it's not an overly boring video between those things. Just to explain my very strange attire today, I am having some sensory weirdness going on today where my head was really cold, but my arms were really overheating. So I've got a pretty much sleeveless top on with a woolly hat on, which is, I'm sure it looks odd. And I feel very awkward because I don't really like having my arms out, and I can see them in the video. So if I'm a bit awkward, I apologise for that. So, my camera's going to move up a little bit so that I can reveal the first question, and then let's get going with it. I hope you enjoy it. So the first question is, is that the same as being insert ableist slur? Oh, this is a bit of a difficult one for me because I have not been diagnosed for a huge amount of time, and I've not been open about my diagnosis for a huge amount of time, and I've been in quite a controlled environment since my diagnosis. I haven't really had this in person. I have had it online where somebody called me the R word. I'm assuming that person wasn't from England because it's not, the R word isn't used as a slur. Generally, there's lots of other slurs that are used towards us, but that word isn't. But in that situation, I basically explained the fact that was a disgusting word. It doesn't describe anybody. It's just offensive. And I shared a link to the Autistic Society's website explaining the traits of autism, and said you make a decision on what you think it is, because that's a horrible word to use. And I think I just do a similar thing without the link situation. Obviously, I can't give somebody a link in real life, but in real life, I would sort of say, absolutely disgusting, you shouldn't be saying that word. It doesn't describe anybody, and no, I am not going to really converse with you. I'd hope that nobody close to me would say that, so I don't feel like I would have to have any kind of conversation outside of that. Yeah, sorry about that one. The first one, where it was a little bit flaky because of the fact I've never experienced it. I was going to say, unfortunately, I'm glad I haven't experienced it, and I'm sorry if anybody. I'm sorry when other people have. I know that people do, so I do. I'm really, really sorry that people experience that. So this is where it's going to take a little bit of time to go to the next one. And here we are. So you should be very proud of yourself. Thank you. You seem so normal. Oh, God. I couldn't tell you were autistic. So first of all, I'm going to sarcastically thank the person for being proud of himself. Well, I suppose sarcastically to an extent. But yeah, I'm proud of my achievements in life. Nothing to do with being autistic. Just the fact that I'm proud of getting to where I am and still being here, and have done things in my life. You seem so normal. Not even going to touch that one, apart from maybe ask what do you think normal is, which is kind of going to be the same when you say when I sort of talk about I couldn't tell you're autistic. The question is, what do you think an autistic person looks like? What do you think an autistic person is going to do that's going to give away the fact that they're autistic? What is an autistic person to you for you to say that I don't seem autistic? And then get into the conversation about each autistic person is different. We all have different traits, and we're all human beings at the end of the day. So we're all going to have different traits, and those traits are going to affect us differently. It's going to depend on various different things within our lives, and sort of see it as an opportunity to educate people on the fact that every autistic person is different. And yes, we all process the world differently to a neurotypical person, but we also process it differently to each other as well. And maybe have a longer conversation, if possible, with the person around the neurodiversity of everybody has a different neurology. So let's go to question number 3. It sounds like I'm really pushing this so that I can get to the next question. You must be very high functioning. This one's an interesting one for me because I see high functioning and high masking as different. There are certain elements of my life that I am high functioning in, and there's a lot of elements, especially on the social side, where I'm high masking. And I think this would give an opportunity to explain the difference between functioning and masking, and maybe talking about some of the damage that can be done around masking, or certainly has for me. And that just because you see see a person looking like they're functioning well, it doesn't necessarily mean internally that's what's going on. That I would be able to explain to them that internally, in any social situation, I'm going through a lot of stuff, as well as having to deal with with sensory issues, as well as the fact that I may be taking longer to process information. I think again this is an opening up conversations around what the difference is between functioning and masking. And just because you think somebody's high functioning, it doesn't necessarily mean they're functioning well internally. So let's have a look at number 4. I know a person whose autism is really severe. You don't seem like them. Again, this kind of is going to be the same thing as what some of the others are. A lot of these I feel is probably going to be like this. I think that it's going to be an opportunity to say that everybody's different, that there are severity levels for autism, whether I agree with the current ones or whether there should be more or not, but there are. So it gives me an opportunity to talk about the 3 severity levels, which sort of dictate how much somebody's support needs are. And sort of, again, I would be asking about sort of what is your perception of that? And it seems like a bit of a backhanded compliment to an extent, saying that you're not like this other person who I see as severe, but that is then devaluing the fact that you're autistic, and quite often can come across as feeling like you're being told you're not autistic enough. And I think it's the thing is, when it comes to the severity levels, it's not about the fact that you are not experiencing things in the same things, that you're not having sensory issues, that you're not having that you don't have sensory differences. It's not that you haven't got social interaction issues, and you don't have challenges there. And it's not that that your repetitive behaviours are not there. It's just that they might not be as apparent to other people, or you might be able to keep them under control, and it's not having as big an outward effect. And I think quite often when you're looking at severity levels, it's more how it's affecting other people rather than necessarily the way that it's affecting somebody just internally. It's also how people perceive it, so it's how you're perceived by the world. So just explaining the fact that there definitely are different severities, and some people's challenges are much more difficult than mine are. But mine are still quite difficult, and they're different, and I can manage them, and I have other ways of being able to communicate them, whereas other people might not be able to communicate them in quite the same way. And again, explaining the fact that every single autistic person is different, and we experience the world differently. So let's have a look at number 5. Can you have sex? Yes, thank you. I think this is a misconception that people. I have actually been asked this. Well, I've not been asked this. I've been told that if I was autistic, that I wouldn't be able to have sex. I was specifically told that you're not a virgin, therefore you can't be. You can't be autistic, which is obviously ludicrous. We're human beings. We can have sexual needs. We all have an element of sexuality, regardless of what that looks like. We have exactly the same needs as every other human being on the planet, and that includes sexual requirement, the requirement to have sex. How that presents itself is going to be different for every single person. Every single person's sexuality is going to be different, and how they enjoy their sexual practices are going to be different. But absolutely, every autistic person has the capability of having the ability to potentially have sex. So I'm not going to say because not every human being has the possibility that they can, but it doesn't mean that because you're autistic that you're not going to be able to have a sex life. That's absolutely ridiculous, and you're just going to have the same array of sex lives as the neurotypical world. Might experience it differently. Our feelings about it might be different to the neurotypical world generally. Maybe our sensory differences may mean that sex is different for us, but it doesn't negate the fact that it is a human need. Number 6. Does that mean you are really good at maths, computers, numbers? Right. So for me, yes, personally, that does mean that I'm good at maths, computers, and numbers, but that is a stereotype. I have mentioned many times on this channel when I've been doing other videos about the fact that my autism seems to have white male privilege. In the fact that I am very numbers based, I'm very sort of stereotypical male, male autistic sort of prototype. Of how people may traditionally see things in this sense that you know I am good at maths, I am relatively good with computers, I can code, I have a good working understanding of how computers and technology work, and I've said many times I have a deep interest in numbers. So yes, but then it opens up a conversation to say, but that doesn't mean that every autistic person does. Actually, to the contrary, it's not as common as you would think it is. There are as many different interests for autistic people as there are autistic people. Actually, there's multiple, because most of us don't just have one interest. We might have one very strong interest, but it doesn't mean that means that we only have one interest in totality. So yeah, I think this is a good opportunity to basically debunk a myth of the fact that all autistic people are good at maths and computers and numbers. I know some people absolutely despise numbers, so it's it's an opportunity to be able to have a conversation more around the fact that, again, every autistic person is different, and that includes our skill sets. We are rounded human beings. Let's have a look at number 7. But you're married / have a job / go to college. You couldn't do that if you were autistic. Yes, I could, and yes, I have. So I'm not married. I have been in relationships. I have a job currently. And I have done further education to an extent. Now, I've struggled really difficultly. I've struggled quite considerably with doing any further education because of the constraints and timescales and things like that have been a problem for me. I enjoy learning, but I struggle with the constraints of sort of traditional learning. I have a job, but I have struggled in the job market for many years. I don't stay in jobs for more than sort of 18 months before I absolutely burn myself out, because I end up working too much and not knowing when to stop. And the social aspects of it become overwhelming for me, and I ruminate and become totally burnt out. And I have been in long-term relationships, and nobody knows what those relationships have been like internally. And on reflection on them now, I can see where my autism caused problems there for me personally. But I also know that being married and being in a relationship and being in a monogamous monogamous relationship can be really helpful to somebody who's autistic, because of the fact that it gives them accountability, it gives them somebody else that relies on them, and actually we can really benefit from that. It can really help our routine. It can help us put a routine in place and stick to it and not feel dysregulated, as long as that person is the right person to be with us. And it's kind of the same as, like, if you find a job that fits you well and that suits your routine, and you're able to do well within it. Having a job can be extremely helpful for an autistic person. So again, this is saying each individual person is different, and none of these things mean that you're not autistic. I am really autistic. I have a clinical diagnosis. I am autistic. I don't need to be married, have a job, or I don't need to be single, unemployed, and have not gone to any kind of educational system for me to be diagnosed. They're not part of the criteria for a diagnosis for autism, for a reason, because they're not part of the diagnosis. How you interact with those things may be part of the diagnosis. So number 8 is do you take medication for that? I have been asked this question because I think people think that it can be cured, that autism can be cured or treated. And this is an educational a chance for educating somebody again. And the answer obviously is no. There is no medication or treatment or cure for autism. It's the way my brain works. It's the way my neural pathways have developed, and it's part of me. But I do have related mental health conditions that I do take medication for. So I have anxiety. I also suffer from depression, and have recently been diagnosed with CPTSD. All of those things are medicated, and I am having therapy for all those things as well, or will be having therapy once that is put into place. I'm going to be doing a video about that because that's been an absolute nightmare with the NHS. But yeah, this is a really good one to sort of, because it's not offensive. It's just, and it is a really good chance to be able to explain autism a little bit more and explain that it is a neurodevelopmental condition. It is not something that is curable or changeable or treatable. It's there. It'll be there for life, and there's no way of curing or treating it. Neither would I want to. So let's have a look at number 9. Oh, you have no right to claim to speak for severely autistic people who can't speak for themselves. Right. Okay, so I agree that we shouldn't be speaking on behalf of a specific person. But I believe very much in advocacy for everybody within the autistic community. We should be advocating for each other. We should be advocating for ourselves. I take issue on saying that people can't speak for themselves. I've kind of touched on this in a video that I did where I said that people's voices wouldn't be heard, which is very different to saying they couldn't speak for themselves. So I think this is an assumption that people who are non-verbal / non-speaking, however you want to put that, they don't have a voice, or they haven't got something to say. And they have got something to say, and they have got a voice. They have ways of communicating, whether that is in different ways. So there's technology now that allows people to be able to have a voice, as well as people who use blogs, who do blogs and things like that, which they're able to type. It doesn't mean that because somebody isn't talking, that isn't vocalizing something to you, doesn't mean they're not communicating with you. And there are various ways for people to communicate. And I think to say that you have no right to speak for somebody, but it might be that you may need help to understand that person. So that's it. This is absolute rubbish. Because it's absolute rubbish to an extent, but it's also, I agree that we should not be speaking for anybody, for any individual, but we should be speaking for the autistic community as a whole. We understand as autistic people what it is like to be autistic. We might not understand it exactly the way that person's experiencing it, but I'm pretty damn sure that I and most people who are watching this channel probably would understand what somebody is going through better than a neurotypical person would do, because of the fact that we experience the world differently to the way that neurotypical person is. So we might be speaking up and saying something on behalf of somebody and trying to explain what it's like for us so that they would have a better understanding. But I think it is important to be clear on the fact I'm speaking from my experience to sort of give you an insight of how this may be affecting somebody else. And that doesn't necessarily go for somebody who's non-verbal or non-speaking. It may mean that you are speaking to somebody who is talking about somebody that they've witnessed. So if they've watched something, a video or something like that, and they have an opinion on it, this might be an opportunity for me to say, well, this is the way I experience things, and maybe you should see it from a different perspective. So it's not necessarily because autism has stopped the person from being able to communicate with that person in a way they understand. It might be that person that actually isn't giving the person the opportunity to defend themselves, and that could be somebody who is verbal, who does speak. So it just might be that they don't have the opportunity to respond because they've not been given that opportunity by the person saying it. So cutting us off and saying that we can't speak on behalf of people, I think is ridiculous, because any kind of advocacy is positive, but we shouldn't be saying this is exactly how this person feels. It should be relating it to our experience and trying to get somebody to see it from, if I feel this way, imagine what it would be like if I was if I was unable to communicate that to somebody in a way that they were willing to accept and understand. So let's have a look at number 10. Can you please not flap, tap, rock, spin, jump in public? It's embarrassing. No, I'll do. If I feel like flapping, if I feel like tapping, I feel like rocking, I feel like spinning, or I feel like jumping in public, I will do that. I'm not hurting anybody else. As long as I'm not spinning around into somebody and hurting them, why should I? If it's embarrassing you, move away. I am at that point now where my stimming, if it offends you, then just don't come out with me. Simple as that. Not that I go out, but still, if I was out. it's kind of with the masking situation. Just get over it. So number 11 would be, you mean you are a person with autism? You are a person first, not a disability or label. Right, okay. So this one, everybody has the right as an autistic, as a person, as a human being, but every autistic person has the right to be able to identify however they want. So I have no issue. It's not my place to have an issue with it. That if somebody identifies as a person with autism, there is nothing wrong with that. Valid. It's just as valid as the way that I do it, which is that I identify as being an autistic person, because I don't see it as I'm giving myself a disability or label. I see it as that it is my brain. It is who I am. It's the way I am. I'm actually proud of it, and I wouldn't change it. I would not change my brain for the world. It is the way my brain is. If I changed it, I wouldn't be me. So I'm not about to change my neuropathways. So why would I not refer to myself as being autistic? Why would I not? I am autistic. That it is a big part of who I am. It is literally what I am every day. Every time I have a thought, autism is there. So I completely get it because of the fact that I see I see my mental health conditions as things that happen to me, that they are disabling to me, and they're not something that I want to have. And I understand that people may feel that way, and like I say, that is absolutely valid. I personally don't feel that way. I feel it is part of my identity, and I am happy with the fact that it is part of my identity. No matter how much it's challenging, I think my brain is beautiful because of the fact it's autistic, and I think that's acceptable for us to do that. And to be told different by somebody else, it's not their place to. Whether you're autistic or you're not autistic, it isn't down to us to tell each other how we refer to ourselves and how we see our own autism. So number 12, what is it like being autistic? What's it like being neurodivergent? Neurotypical. I can't sort of can answer this, but I would just want more context, and it would have to be a long conversation. And if it's a person that's not somebody I can sit down and have a long conversation with because it's so complicated, I would have to say it's too general for me to be able to answer that question. And realistically, I can't really explain to you what it's like being autistic, because it just means that I process the world differently to everybody else. To neurotypical people. So I can't explain it to you unless you want to sit and have a long conversation with me about talking about various different traits and the way that I experience the world. But that's not going to be in just one session of us having a conversation. We'd have to be friends, and it'd be something that would take a long time for me to explain to you. But I would also say, what's it like to be neurotypical? What would you say? How does your brain work? Yeah, that's what you're asking. That's the question you're asking. Number 13. Number 13. You never used to act like this. Post-diagnosis, unmasking. Yeah, so I've had this. So it's trying. The biggest thing is I've had this more, not necessarily coming at me as a sort of negative towards other people. More they're worried about me, and that I might, that because I'm processing the world differently, and I will go into when I'm sensory overloaded, I will isolate myself for a little while so that I can regulate myself. Or I've had my meltdowns have become more regular, but they're not as bad as they used to be. But I'm not hiding them as much as I was before as well. So they're not as bad because they're more regular. I'm allowing myself to melt down more, but other people are seeing them in a way that they didn't see them before. And also there's lots of things, but I haven't really had things where people have been offended by what I've done. They're more concerned about the fact of they think that this behaviour change in their view is something that might be that I'm not good with it. I am better than I have been for 38 years of my life. I feel really empowered and light by me being able to accept being autistic and allowing myself to regulate myself as I need to. And I'm not about to change that just because of the fact it may make people uncomfortable. The unmasking thing, I think, has made people feel uncomfortable to an extent because I say things without stopping myself and sort of driving myself insane by not saying any, by sort of staying silent. So that's probably the bit where people have seen a difference in me, and I monologue with more acceptance of the fact that I'm monologuing, and I'm allowing myself to be more into my special interests without feeling guilty about it and stopping myself from doing it. So I do go into them a lot more than I used to. So but I've had it a few times, and the answer is that this is just, I am being me now. I've unmasked. I'm allowing myself to be me, and you need to accept that. It's invalidating for you to tell me any different, and I apologize if it's making your life difficult in any way. And I'm happy for you to have that conversation with me to say that it is making your life more difficult, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to change it. It just means we can have a conversation about it. And if it's damaging to you, then of course I would stop it. But it's not. It's more that it might be a tad frustrating for you, or that you just see me differently to the way you saw me before. Yeah. So not being, the biggest thing for me is meltdowns, and for me shutting down as well, and allow it and taking myself out of an equation much quicker. That happens a lot more than it used to, and I think that's concerned people quite a bit. And actually, it's really beneficial to me, and it will continue, regardless of whether people are concerned. I've told them not to be, because there is no reason to be concerned about it. I'm happy. So, number 14, the penultimate question. Everyone, I think I was meant to say, everyone finds life difficult. Yeah, they do. Autistic people are human beings. Therefore, everybody, including autistic people, find life difficult. We just process the world differently, and it may be that we have more extreme reactions to things. So therefore, because I'm assuming this is referring to the saying you're struggling, which I have had this with somebody at work where they have said, well, everybody struggles with life. Yep, they do, and I'm not saying that they don't. I'm trying to explain to you what my struggles are. It helps me to be able to vocalize that. If it doesn't you, that's fine, but I do need to vocalize what my struggles are. So yeah, it's kind of, again, invalidating to be told. It's like, okay, that's fine. I get that. I never said that you don't. I'm just saying that this is affecting me. And the final question is, I thought it might be this one. I was waiting for this one throughout the whole video. Everyone is a little bit autistic. No, they are not. Between 1% and 2% of the population currently is classed as autistic. I believe it's higher than that, but no, not everybody's a bit autistic. We have autistic traits are human traits, but they are human traits that are sometimes exaggerated, that they're exasperated, they feel more impact on us, but they're more regular often as well, and our response to it can be more extreme. So and also that it can be concurrent. So we can potentially have various different social issues going on at the same time as having a sensory overload, at the same time as having something internally going on. There's so much going on with us that it's not. And I've had the conversation, same person actually, around, so the same person said everybody's a little bit autistic, and then I explained rumination to that person, because I was sort of going through things with her, and I explained rumination and I said, do you ruminate? And she said, yeah. She said, everybody ruminates. I went, absolutely, they do. I said, how long does that rumination last for? And she went, oh, just maybe an hour. I was like, not days. You won't ruminate over a conversation you had days ago, thinking about you could have done things better, you could have said things better. Oh no, I wouldn't do that. If you had a phone call with a doctor, how long would you ruminate before you made that phone call? Oh, well, I might worry about it for 10-15 minutes. I'd worry about it for days, planning what I was going to say to the doctor. I would delay ringing a doctor, even in an emergency situation, because I would need to ruminate over it first, and then I would ruminate over the phone call after it. And that was when she realised, actually, no, not everybody's a bit autistic. Some people are autistic, and some people are not. I feel like I've rushed through those questions, but I purposely wanted to only answer them briefly and as quickly as possible with my real answers, and I apologise. I'm hoping that when I go back through it, I haven't said anything that sounds awful. But thank you very much. As always, comments on this would be fantastic. Anything you want to give on your responses to any of these statements, that would be great. And if you could subscribe, that would be perfect as well. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you on the next video. Thanks. Bye.